Chapter 7. Examination of the created realm of existence. Verse 1. If origination is of the created nature, then the three characteristics, that is, origination, duration, and cessation, will prevail. But if origination is of the uncreated nature, how could it be a characteristic of the created? Verse 2. When the three characteristics of origination, etc., are discrete, there will be no action in the characteristics with respect to the created nature. And if they are compounded or united, how could they occur at the same time in the same place? Verse 3. If other characteristics of the created nature besides that of origination, duration, and cessation are permitted, then this process of assigning characteristics could go on ad infinitum. If they are not permitted, on the other hand, then they are not of the created nature. Verse 4. The origination of origination is nothing but the arising of the primal origination, and of course the primal origination gives rise to the origination of origination. Verse 5. If you say that the origination of origination is the arising of the primal origination, then how could it give rise to the primal origination when it depends on the latter for its own being, and yet has not arisen? If you say that which depends on the primal origination gives rise to the primal origination, then how could it give rise to the primal origination, which in turn depends on the origination of origination, and which has not yet arisen? Verse 7. This so-called presently originating will, as you wish, cause an origination if that which has not arisen is capable of causing such an origination. Verse 8. As light illumines both itself and other entities, so does origination give rise to both itself and others. Verse 9. There is no darkness in light or in its abode. What does light illumine when indeed it destroys darkness? Verse 10. How could darkness be destroyed by a presently shining light? For indeed the presently shining light has not as yet extended over to darkness. Verse 11. If darkness is destroyed by light which is not extended, then light in such a state will destroy the whole world of darkness. Verse 12. If light illumines both itself and other entities, then undoubtedly darkness will also darken itself and other entities as well. Verse 13. How could an origination which has not arisen give rise to its own self? Again, if that which has arisen gives rise to itself, how could there be a rise again? Verse 14. In no way is it possible that origination arises from presently arising, that which has arisen or that which has not arisen. This line of argument has already been discussed with respect to Gamimana, Gata, and Agata. Verse 15. When this presently arising does not proceed from the origination, how can it be said that the former depends on the latter? Verse 16. Any entity which exists by virtue of relational origination is quiescence in itself. Therefore, presently arising and origination per se are likewise in the nature of quiescence. Verse 17. If an entity which has not arisen is granted to exist somewhere, then it would originate. But how could this entity, when it actually does not exist, originate? Verse 18. If origination gives rise to the presently arising, then again, what kind of origination will now give rise to the first type of origination? Verse 19. If another origination gives rise to this first origination, then origination will go on ad infinitum. But if that which has arisen arises from non-origination, then everything will arise in such a way. Verse 20. Indeed, an origination relative to either being or non-being cannot be justified, nor is it possible with being and non-being at the same time. This has been demonstrated before. Verse 21. Origination of a presently extinguishing entity is impossible. Moreover, it is equally impossible for a presently non-extinguishing entity. Verse 22. An entity which has arisen does not abide, that is, endure, nor does an entity which has not arisen. A presently enduring entity also does not abide. How could something without origination abide? Verse 23. The abiding of a presently extinguishing entity is impossible. Indeed, the abiding of a presently non-extinguishing entity is equally impossible. Verse 24. As all entities are always subject to the conditions, that is, dharmas, of aging and death, what entities abide which are not subject to the conditions? Verse 25. The abiding state of an entity is not justifiable on the grounds of another entity's abiding, or by its own abiding. This is just as the origination of origination, which is dependent neither on its own self nor on another. Verse 26. That which has not extinguished does not extinguish. That which has extinguished does not extinguish also. This is also the case with that which is presently extinguishing. How could an entity which has not arisen extinguish itself? Verse 27. In truth, the cessation of an abiding entity is not possible. Also, the cessation of a non-abiding entity is not possible. Verse 28. From its abiding state, surely the same state does not extinguish itself. Also, from another abiding state, that state does not extinguish itself. Verse 29. As the origination of all dharmas, that is, factors of existence, is not possible, so also is the cessation of all dharmas. Verse 30. In truth, the cessation of a real existing entity is not possible, for indeed it is not possible to have the nature of both existence and non-existence at the same time. Verse 31. The cessation of an unreal existing entity is also not possible. It is as if the severance of a second head of a person is inconceivable. Verse 32. There is no cessation by itself or by another entity. It is just as the origination of origination does not arise by itself or by another. Verse 33. As the establishment of origination, duration, and cessation is not possible, there is no created realm. Without the establishment of the created realm, how then will the uncreated realm come about? And verse 34. It is like an illusion, a dream, or an imaginary city in the sky. In such a way, the concepts of origination, duration, and cessation have been described. In such a way, the concepts of origination, duration, and cessation have been described.